For decades, G.I. Joe ruled the toy shelves as the ultimate toy for boys. And for the entire time, there were comic strips and comic books to go along with it. But then in 1978, Star Wars killed the great American hero, only to be revived 4 years later in 1982 as an appropriate response to everyone's favorite space opera. I'm Paul, and this is Indie Pop Productions, pop culture from an independent point of view. And today, we're going to dig into a little bit of the history of G.I. Joe comic books, but mostly we're going to dig into this massive Kickstarter exclusive compendium of the entire Marvel run of G.I. Joe comic books. Back in 1982, when they were launching the G.I. Joe toys as a smaller figure, more similar to Kenner's Star Wars action figures, it wasn't long before they realized that they needed comic books to go with the toys to give the figures some sort of backstory and character. So they met with Marvel Comics and then editor Larry Hama to come up with this comic book series. Now, the comic book would be used in some interesting ways. In this time period, there were rules on exactly how you could merchandise commercials for toys to children. But there were no rules on how you can advertise comic books. So they used the comic books as a launching board for the toys, but also made the commercials about the comic books so they had a little more freedom to entice kids to buy these comics and thus buy the toys. Now, within a year after that, the Reagan administration had loosened up a lot of the regulations around what could be done on a children's cartoon, basically making them able to make cartoons come out that were little more than just advertisements for your current toy series. Giving us some of my favorite moments of my childhood: G.I. Joe, Transformers, GoBots, Mask, Thundercats, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. All these things were made possible at this point. But even though at that point the cartoon became more of the driving force of the toys, the comic books stayed there and kept going kind of down its own path. They both followed the storyline of the toy series, but they didn't exactly line up with each other. Whereas a lot of the comic books out there, especially by Marvel, were kind of shoved into their Star Comics line, which is more children's based. The G.I. Joe comic books stayed by regular Marvel Comics, and they were a little more serious, a little more dark than you were going to find in most toy-based comic books. Larry Hama wrote the entire series, lasted for 12 years, and between different spin-offs, around 150 or so issues. And his line was quite a bit different than the cartoon in a few ways. One, the characters, their relationships were different. Best example of that is that in the comics, there is a bit of a romance between Snake Eyes and Scarlet. You're not going to find that in the cartoon series. If anything, it feels like Scarlet and Duke are more meant for each other in the cartoon, though I don't think they ever really get into it too much. It's been a while since I've watched the cartoons. I'm really more up on the comic books these days. The themes are quite a bit darker. They deal with real war, real weapons, terrorists. It's not as pew-pew laser guns, which brings us into the third difference, and that is dealing with death. You know, in the cartoon, you blow up an airplane, and then in the middle of the explosion, you see the parachute dropping down with a safe human in it. Not so much in the comic books. In the comic books, bullets injured you and could even kill you. And sometimes even major characters on both Cobra and G.I. Joe did die during the series, which, you know, they were going to do in the G.I. Joe, the movie, animated feature, but learned their lesson from the Transformers movie not long before that killing a character like Duke might not be the best idea. The comic book ran for, like I said, quite a long time. In 1994, Marvel, they stopped making the toys, and Marvel lost the license or the interest in making a popular comic book series that wasn't as popular anymore because there was no toy line to go with it. Then it went through a few different companies. Dark Horse got the rights for a while. Devil's Due got the rights for a while. Dreamwave. Then it went over to IDW Comic Books, who had a really good run for a long time. And then more recently making its way to Skybound Entertainment. Skybound Entertainment is Robert Kirkman's imprint over at Image Comics, excuse me. Robert Kirkman being the well-known and popular creator of The Walking Dead and Invincible. And so, this is a guy that, as a writer of comic books, very critically acclaimed comic books that have been made into TV shows, popular TV shows, really has a focus on good writing, but also smart enough to know that you got to have that good art to go with it. So he's worked with some great artists over the years. So they've got some good storylines going on over there. I honestly haven't got too much into them yet, but they've kind of created a shared universe with the Transformers and G.I. Joe called the Inner John universe. I've been interested in getting into that, but the thing that got me most interested in their comics wasn't this new line, because they've had G.I. Joe comic books, and some of them have been great for years, but it's the special edition of the early Marvel years that they put out on Kickstarter. All the Larry Hama stuff. Now, all the comic book companies that have done the comics over the years, they've had a tendency to know that, hey, if we get Larry Hama in one way or another to come in and be a part of a project, then that's going to really hit the nostalgia button for those 80s kids that really grew up with this. So what they did, they said, okay, let's do this Kickstarter for a compendium of 4 volumes that collects all 150-ish issues of that Marvel run. And it was very pretty, very well done. Going to open it up in just a second. I think it ended up being the highest or most successful comic book Kickstarter project in the history of the platform. Made tons of money, had just a ton of swag that we're going to get out of this. All the things that, the stretch goals, they call them, that if we hit this much, then you get this extra prize. If this many people back, we'll get this many extra prize. All kinds of fun stuff that they put in there. So I've been very excited for a long time to get with this. They actually sent out, before they sent the final product, digital copies of all those comic books. So I've been making my way through a lot of those, having a lot of fun, reminding myself how good those comic books were. The thing that shocked me, I mentioned earlier that the comics were darker and dealt a lot more with death. Within just the first few issues, the body count is insane. Not necessarily of main characters, but there's just a lot of killing going on. And at one point in the very first issue, Scarlet is in Snake Eyes, they're under fire, and Scarlet points out, the little gun that she always has, hooked to her glove over here. She says to Snake Eyes, "I'm saving 2 bullets. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be captured." And I was like, whoa, how old do they think the kids were they're going to be buying these toys? That is crazy. So, whether or not this was appropriate for children at that time period, it's hard to say. But it's a really good read for an adult going back and just looking to hit that nostalgia button. So with that said, let's go ahead and dig into this box. It's very heavy. There's a lot in here. And the compendium itself is rather large and heavy itself. So, okay. Of course, packing materials. All right. First out, nice bookmark. Oh, double-sided. Ooh, some very nice prints. And you're into this. Baroness. Snake Eyes. And Storm Shadow. God. Oh, looks like the G.I. Joe patch. Just to let you know, there were 2 options of what you can get with this. One was the Cobra set and one was the G.I. Joe set. The comic books on the inside were exactly the same, but some of the swag would be different. Being a goody two-shoes, I did choose the G.I. Joe set, not the Cobra set. So I get the G.I. Joe logo patch as opposed to the Cobra patch. That would actually look really good on this particular jacket, I think. We've also got more or less the same thing as a pin. Put it there next to my Pink Ranger pin. We've got, there's a lot of stuff in here. All right, we've got just a little flyer. Again, the G.I. Joe logo, but as a sticker. Then we've got some sets of cards. Go ahead and open these up and see what's in these. Oh, that's neat. Zap, and then a card specifically of Larry Hama. That I remember when they released that as a stretch goal. That is pretty cool. Oh yeah, the Storm Shadow trading card. Almost wish I wasn't opening this up, but I want to crack it open and take a look at it. This one you got, I think, if you signed up for the rewards program for the publisher. That does not want to open. Be very careful because I do not want to damage that card in there. Nice. Storm Shadow trading card. And of course, they all have all the information on the characters on the back. And then just another set, just the various cards that came out that were not necessarily special editions, but everybody that backed certain tiers got. Oh yeah, got to start with Snake Eyes. Stalker. Stalker being a much bigger character in the early comic books than he was really in the cartoon series. Scarlet. Hawk. Again, in the early comic books, it felt like Hawk was really doing the Duke character. I think Duke became more important in the cartoon than he was in the early comic book. CoverGirl. And of course, Duke did come into his own in the comics eventually. Beachhead. Lady J. Flint. Gung Ho. Mutt and Junkyard. Roadblock. And they had a lot of specials come out. Spirit and Freedom. Shipwreck and Polly. Jinx. Tunnel Rat. And Bazooka. Now, if I had gotten the Cobra set, it would be a whole different set of cards. These are all Joe's, but again, goody two-shoes. Sorry, not sorry. I love the good guys. Love heroes. Then, next set of swag. Reproduction of G.I. Joe Yearbook #1. This is the only issue of any of these things that is not actually in the set, because this doesn't actually have a story in it. This is more character bios, things like that. So they decided to make it part with this reproduction. G.I. Joe Special with the Snake Eyes cover, kind of a homage to Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man cover. And G.I. Joe Real American Hero, very nice, very fancy Storm Shadow edition. Very cool to have all those. Will not be opening those up. Any reading is going to be done in the digital copies. These are definitely staying with my collection. Then, within the box, another box. So, this is what we've been waiting for. Is there a box within this box? My goodness, guys. Okay. All right. Sorry, that just, it's like a Russian doll. Every box has another box in it. But at least I know they were taking good care of it and shipping. Now, crack this one open. Hopefully there's an actual product in this one and not another box. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. All right. The actual box. Glare that out. New art. Really cool art on the sides. Plastic wrapped, so we're gonna have to do a little more digging. Okay. Now, try to hold this up so it can be seen. Nice vaulted opening at the top. Just to give you a look. Very, very nice set. All etched covers, blue leather-like material. Have to start off with the first one, of course. Snake Eyes. Man, that is nice. The G.I. Joe logo on the back. And of course, again, this would be red and with Cobra characters if I'd gotten that set. Gilded edges. This is really nice. Got a silk ribbon. Oh, listen to that crack. Yeah, that's very high quality. That classic art, but done right on this special edition paper. Again, this is going to be more of a collector's item for me. I probably will not be reading directly from this. I'm going to be reading the digital files because this is something I'm going to have on display and keep safe forever. Give you guys another look. Scarlet on Volume 2, so they prioritize right as far as I'm concerned. That's Stalker. Yeah, Stalker on number 3. So they go in for those early main characters. Then, of course, finish it up. You got to have Duke. Duke on number 4. Yeah, it feels like there's something in this one. Yep. There's a poster in this one. Double-sided. Modern art, but of that classic team. Very awesome. This is great. Everything else. Great set. Highly recommended. Since they have their Energon universe doing, and they have the rights to both the G.I. Joe and the Transformers, I have really been hoping that they do the exact same thing with those Transformer comics. Because again, like I said, the Thundercats and Masters of the Universe and everything, when they would do like the kiddier versions. But like G.I. Joe, Transformers kind of went that same route and had the great comic book storyline that they've tried to retouch and continue with, and as they've adapted it over the years in comics. So I would love to see a set similar to this. I don't know if it would be the full 4 volumes. I think it would be a little smaller. I don't think there were quite as many Transformer comics, if I remember. But there were quite a few. It went on for a good while and was a really good comic book run. But this is awesome. I absolutely love this. Cannot wait to display it, and I will continue to enjoy reading the massive amount of digital comics that came with it that I've been digging into for a while. So let me know what you think. Is this something that you're interested in? It's going to be hard to find exactly like this, but I do believe some retailers do have some copies. They allowed retailers to be a part of the campaign, so there were some comic book shops out there that got their hands on some. Probably going to be a little more expensive than what you would have got if you got the Kickstarter campaign, and you won't get any of the swag that came with this. But the compendium itself is gorgeous, and I would highly suggest. What did you think of this episode? Again, I'm still finding my voice on these things, so let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, kind of hopping back and forth again between comic books and video games, and kind of up in the air on what I'm going to do after this. I knew from the beginning I had the first 3 planned out, already had the merchandise on its way. I do have some other things that'll be coming soon, especially comic book related, but there's a lot of video game releases coming out this year. Particularly, we're going to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 when it comes out, I'm sure, but lots of other things as well. So tell me what you think, what you like, what you don't like, what you're interested in seeing going forward, and what do you think of the special G.I. Joe compendium by Skybound Entertainment. All right, thanks guys. Hopefully I'll see you soon.